Welcome, friends of sport. My name is Imani. I am 15 years old and I'm from Spain. Thank you for joining us for this UTS World Virtual Youth Festival 2020 Education Panel. We are here to talk about inclusivity, equality, and non-discrimination in sport.
Dear guests, my name is Sasha. I am 15 years old and I'm from France. For today's panel discussion, please welcome Ben Haack from Australia, Cindy Sirinya Bishop from Thailand, Abhinav Bindra from India, Juan Pablo Salazar from Colombia, and Dr. Naris Chaiyasoot from Thailand.
It is truly my honor to introduce Andrew Parsons as the scene setter for this panel. Mr. Parsons is known as the president for the International Paralympic Committee. Welcome, Mr. Parsons.
I would like to send my gratitude to the UTS initiative, which combines sporting and cultural exchange through a festival concept, and the 5-day educational program, which includes important topics, cultivating and increasing social inclusion and the Paralympic values. Now it's a time for innovation, to look forward and to bring back better. Thank you to the Kingdom of Thailand for contributing to this unique virtual youth festival. We do not always have the answers, but with a strong team, we are limitless, and together we will continue to find new ways forward. IPC is proud to have granted patronage for this innovative festival that places youth of all abilities right where they should be, at the center. This youth festival is a perfect example of what can be achieved when like-minded people come together. IPC would especially like to thank UTS President Stephen Fox for being such a driving force. Our competition category, Inclusive Sports, invited youth from all walks of life with all abilities to participate towards fitness, health, and education. The IPC would like to send a message of solidarity to all youth around the world. You are all amazing, gifted, and unique. Never be afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Now let's get down to business. Over the last 3 months, we have gathered questions from the international sporting community, which will be asked here today.
I would like to welcome the first panel speaker, Mr. Ben Haack. Mr. Haack, being a true blue Aussie playing football and cricket at a high level, we know you're passionate and dedicated about the Special Olympic mission and vision to foster a better world by more acceptance and inclusion for all people. How, in your opinion, can the world be more inclusive, especially in sports?
Well, for me, I think one of the key things is I think we need to focus on local level more within sport. I really do think that sport should be trying to be more actively involved or using organisations like Special Olympics as educators to try and educate the mainstream clubs, the mainstream coaches, the volunteers, to try and get a real good understanding of how to include people with disabilities in their events, or all the way from a big event like, say, a State of Origin or a FIFA World Cup, all the way down to a local football club or a local swimming club. I think that's got to be the answer. I think partnerships, working together. I think that people need to recognise that inclusion is not a feel-good or an inspirational thing or a story, but really it's kind of key to sustaining your sport. It's really key to building your membership base. It's really key to have more people involved, because if you are seen as just elite or only for a certain demographic, or you're just driven for trophies or that sort of thing, the risk is you're going to turn people away. Bottom line, you're going to turn people away. You're going to turn potential players, potential volunteers, potential fans away. And people with disabilities are a base. They are people. And if you get involved in organisations like Special Olympics, what you'll learn is that we can do things. We can be involved. We can contribute. In my experience, and I've played probably 25 years of mainstream sport, I've played a lot of years in Special Olympics, so I played both. What I've seen is that in terms of the, sort of attitude and the level of competitiveness and the desire and all of that, there's very little difference. The only difference is that in mainstream sport there can be a real elite element, and also that with people with disabilities, you need to be a bit more patient. You need to develop different practices. You need to think of different ways to structure things, which is all things that we can help you guys with. So, that's, to me, is, I think, the key thing, is that if sports could work with us, we could really help you develop a new membership base and also to sustain yourselves. And I think with everything that's going on, including COVID and all of that, I think everybody needs that.
Thank you so much for your inspiring word, Mr. Haack. Personally, we are all inspired by the amazing work the Special Olympic is doing for inclusion. Mr. Haack, you are now in a position of leadership, being on the Special Olympics International Board as well as the youth leader. When in your experience was the first time that you felt genuinely included, and what advice would you give to the youth who feel on the outside?
To be honest, looking back in my life, I think the first time that I ever genuinely felt included was when I found Special Olympics. That was the first time that, I ever really felt a sense of belonging. I felt a sense of respect. I felt like there wasn't this massive sort of pressure or that, I was going to get kicked out or any of those sort of things. So for me, I think, first of all, if anyone is feeling excluded or people are having those sort of challenges, come join our movement. Like we have volunteer programs, we have coach programs, we even have unified sport, which means that, people with and without disabilities play together. We have youth programs. We have all these fantastic opportunities that you can join. The other thing I will say is just to be aware that you are not alone, that there are other people that are going through these sort of challenges. And that if people do mistreat you, that's really a reflection on them, not really a reflection on you. The other thing I think also is, you don't always have to feel like you have to do things according to the way society feels or wants to do things. The other thing is, don't be afraid to have dreams. Don't be afraid to want to achieve. And try and come up with a plan. And also try and develop a decent routine in your life. Try and have decent conversations within yourself. But also, remember what I said. You can always come join our movement, because one of the greatest things that you will learn is that people with disabilities are fantastic people to be around. They are very accepting, and you will feel a sense of belonging.
Thank you so much for opening your heart and sharing your experiences with us. Now, I would like to introduce Ms. Cindy Sirinya Bishop. You're a public figure in Thailand, and you have used your profile by giving back, especially in the fight against violence towards women and youth. Ms. Sirinya Bishop, as the UN Women Regional Goodwill Ambassador for Asia and the Pacific, as an activist, you advocate for gender equality. In 2018, you won the Activist of the Year award, which was presented by Thailand's Prime Minister. What do you think, in your opinion, at this moment in time, are the biggest challenges to overcome regarding gender equality?
Hi, I'm Cindy Sirinya Bishop, UN Women's Goodwill Ambassador to Asia and the Pacific. When we talk about challenges to gender equality in the region, or indeed across the world, there are many. But in my opinion, the two main issues that I'm focusing my efforts on, and I think we all need to, is the area of gender-based violence and lack of economic opportunity. When we talk about violence, especially here in Asia Pacific, it is perhaps the most widespread violation of human rights in the region. Studies have shown that as many as 1 in 2 women has experienced physical and or sexual violence from an intimate partner in the last 12 months alone in some countries around the region. And so if the situation is such that a woman doesn't even have a safe space to live, to work, to play, how are we going to even start to have conversations about economic opportunity or women in leadership? And so to shift the needle on this, we need to continue to raise awareness on the issue of violence against women and girls, to encourage women to speak up and ask for help and seek justice, and also to find lasting solutions to preventing violence in the first place. And one of the ways that we can do that is to challenge these deep-rooted discriminatory practices and stereotypes against women. In 2018, I started a campaign called Don't Tell Me How to Dress as a pushback against the idea and the culture of victim shaming in society in cases of sexual assault. And the notion that it's because of what a woman was wearing or how she was behaving that somehow justified the act of violence against her. And so these are ways that we really need to start changing perceptions and stereotypes that leads to violence, and also obviously to educate our young men as well about what it means to be respectful and to have happy, healthy relationships. The second challenge is the lack of economic opportunity. And so many times the trend is still that women are often clustered in more vulnerable types of work or informal types of work, for example, taking care of the family or housework. And in many cases, she's doing a lot more work for much less pay, if any pay, than a man. And so that needs to change. And the way we do that is to make sure that we give girls the same access to education, the same access to resources and opportunities that boys have. The future of the world literally depends on it. Just imagine if half the world's population had the same access to realize their full potential, how much more productive, how much more prosperous, and how much more peaceful our world would be.
Please allow me to build on your response. As you are a mother raising 2 children, how do you think we can all be agents of change so that children have education and awareness about gender equality?
So as a mother to both a daughter and a son, and also as an activist, this is something that I am very, very passionate about. And because I realize that this is an area where we can really create tangible change. And this perhaps is the answer to achieving gender equality in the near future. Youth and adolescence are times where periods of times that are marked by moments of change for our children. And this is where they just start to decide who they are, what their values are, where they belong. And they're so very heavily influenced by the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors of the people around them and in their lives. For example, their friends, their teachers, and yes, most importantly, their parents. And so as parents, we have not just the opportunity, but we have the obligation to teach our children, our boys and our girls, what is gender equality? What does that look like? How can we become agents of change to achieve that? As parents, we all want our children to be happy, be healthy, be successful, but it's just as important to raise them to be kind, respectful, active citizens of society, knowing that if they see something wrong or they know that something is not just, that they have within themselves the power to make a difference. And there's so many ways that we can do that. The first is just by talking, having conversations at the dinner table or before they go to bed or when they've seen something on the news. You could use tools, materials. There's so many resources now on the internet or books that we can use to talk to our girls and our boys about consent, about respect, and activities. And sport is one of them. It's such an amazing way that we can, create an area where both girls and boys can really celebrate their differences and fulfill their potential. I know in my family, we are very active. Both my kids play a variety of sports, and my daughter, she can look up to female, strong, powerful athletes and one day see herself in that role. And my son sees that as well. Sports also another way that we can challenge these stereotypes about, boys are stronger, or girls, you throw like a girl, when in fact that's not always the case. And my son will be the first to admit that he still can't run as fast as one of the girls in his class. And so there's different ways that you can do it that's not always just so serious. Don't forget, our children are the leaders and change makers of tomorrow. They're going to inherit the legacy and sometimes the mess that we've left them, and they get to shape the future that we all want. And so investing in the time to educate them and to empower the younger generation to become active agents of change is one of the best ways that we can achieve gender equality.
Miss Bishop, thank you so much. And no doubt your children are proud to have you as their mother.
I am actually quite excited to interview Mr. Abhinav Bindra. Mr. Bindra, you have been the only single gold medal winner of India, and you have, no doubt, a legend status in your country and in the Olympic movement. It is an honor to be here with you today. Mr. Bindra, you are an inspiration to so many. You have been so determined to follow your dreams and make them come true. We know that many in today's world are subject to inequality, discrimination, and are often excluded. As a champion, did you ever face such challenges, and what advice can you share to the youth of the world?
Thank you very much. I'm always humbled by kind words such as yours. It has definitely been a long but fulfilling journey for me across my 22-year career. I have without doubt faced my share of discrimination and inequality, but I'd rather not focus on that. I'd rather highlight that sport has the power to transcend race, culture and religion. Through sport, I have made some of my dearest friends and had the opportunity after retirement to work with some of the brightest minds from all over the world and make a difference to the global sporting landscape. In a world that seems to be fraught with unhealthy debate, violence and misinformation, sport can offer an unbiased, inclusive and uplifting way to come together for many across the world. In addition to this, sport is an accessible, fun and community activity that can help in societal health, shared values and self-improvement. The one thing I hope all of you take away from this is that there will always be the few people that you will come across that live with prejudice and hate. The key is to ensure that you focus on what is within your control and leave the rest to whatever will be. In training, as in life, I believe in chasing self-respect, as at the end of the day, it is important to maintain peace of mind. Have you done everything that is within your complete control? Then that is enough. In addition, sport also taught me to be open to new perspectives. We, in many cases, might be discriminatory without realizing it. We must remember to inquire and learn about other perspectives as well as to be open to change. These conversations will help the world slowly and steadily align. I am blessed to have a family and support staff that not only stood by me at all times, but encouraged me to make my own mistakes and give me the confidence to accept shortcomings. More importantly, this gave me the tools to correct myself. This may seem rather insignificant in a vacuum, but these are the building blocks to help people through dark times, reduce the stigma associated with discrimination, and even find a way to see this permeate into society that we live in.
Thank you so much for your advice to us. India is one of the largest countries in the world. However, in sport, not one of the leading yet. Mr. Bindra, why do you think smaller countries are winning more medals compared to larger countries such as India, which are more densely populated?
Countries like Jamaica, Cuba, Croatia and many others have shown their commitment to sport, as well as shown that Olympic medals are about attention to detail and persistence. While medals are certainly a great marker of success, I think the larger story is the sporting culture that they have been able to establish within their countries. It is very important, especially in a country that plans on being successful in sport, to establish a platform where the majority of the nation plays sport diligently, even if it is just for the sheer joy of it. This creates a base of aspirational athletes that can move through the roadmap of high performance sport and establish champions. In addition, the infrastructure and the processes that these countries have been able to establish is very commendable. Through the infrastructure, access is provided and processes ensure that infrastructure is utilized completely. I think it is encouraging to see the growth of participation in sport in India. Moreover, it is great to see that people are coming out to support our athletes. For example, an average district championship attendance has grown massively since the time I used to compete at that level. The rise of role models in each sport show aspiring athletes a pathway to professional sport, and that is something that needs to be nurtured and encouraged. However, sport in India needs investment, the right infrastructure, and a sense of foresight for long-term athlete development will give that talent the encouragement and push that it needs. In many ways, this is happening currently. I have seen a renewed commitment to sport from the government, which I look at the development of sport in this country very optimistically. The more the government and definitely the corporate sector chooses to be involved, the better it will be for the country's sporting development. Over the next decade, I can definitely see more athletes becoming world beaters, and hopefully I won't remain India's only individual gold medalist for too long.
Thank you for sharing your perspective with us, Mr. Bindra.
I feel very honored to introduce the next panelist, Mr. Juan Pablo Salazar. Juan Pablo, you're an inspiration for so many. Being a speaker at the United Nations in New York, working for over 14 years as an activist towards the right of persons with disabilities within the Paralympic movement. What have been some of the most important milestones in your life where you felt discrimination was overcome?
Thank you for the question. The most important milestone for transformation towards the inclusion for persons with disabilities the world has seen is 12 years ago when the United Nations passed the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Why is it so important? Basically, it's because the United Nations is recognizing that people with disabilities are not objects of health intervention or of paternalistic policy, but subjects with rights. This means the United Nations recognize that this is a civil rights movement. So this entire community is shifting from a culture of being patients to a culture of being citizens with rights and in the full capacity of claiming those rights. So this means that as any other civil rights movement, meaning racial movements or gender equality or LGBT community, persons with disabilities is a social collective looking to shift a culture so that it becomes inclusive. Now we have the legal capacity to do so. We have the north and there's a standard set forth by the United Nations. It's the most important milestone so far. It's a little bit boring because it's a document written by lawyers and understood by other lawyers. But that with events like this and other instruments like sports, like movies, like other types of cultures, we help translate those lawyery talks, that lawyer word, into proper cultural shift so that we can build a world that is truly inclusive for everyone.
Mr. Salazar, I salute you. You're a passionate activist for the rights of persons with disabilities, and were the president of the Colombian Paralympic Committee. Currently, you sit on the board of directors of the International Paralympic Committee for the elimination of discrimination against persons with disabilities. What have been the most powerful change-inducing mechanisms you have employed or seen as a step in the right direction towards eliminating discrimination?
Thank you very much for your question. Measuring discrimination towards people with disabilities is quite a tough job. meaning you don't know if country A discriminates 10 and country B discriminates 15. There is no proper indicators. Sports, however, is one way to see it. The degree of inclusion of persons with disability in a country or in an economy can be reflected in that country's participation in Paralympic Games. So you see that more developed countries that have more inclusive infrastructures and laws and education systems, you see that those are the countries that better do at the Paralympic Games. So during my lifetime and with the work, with help of a great team, but also the work that I've done in my country and in the Latin American region, I've seen how those numbers of persons with disabilities participating in Paralympic Games has increased a lot. Colombia, for example, in the Beijing 2008 Games, we had 12 athletes. In the Rio 2016 Games, we had 46 athletes. So that is a huge increase that has to do with budget, that has to do with inclusive laws, that has to do with better infrastructure, that has to do with overall a more inclusive culture. What's the causality of this and how to measure it? It's very difficult to determine. But sports in general is a tool for social transformation, and very in particular for persons with disabilities is the most powerful tool for change.
Thank you so much for sharing with us all.
Now I am proud to introduce Dr. Naris Chaiyasoot from our host country, Thailand. First of all, a big thank you from all of us. Your work focuses on promoting inclusion and non-discrimination. Dr. Naris, as a chairman of Special Olympics Thailand, we understand there are cultural differences in the way people consider inclusion and people with different abilities. How does Special Olympics Thailand work to encourage more inclusion within society?
Social inclusion is one of the key objectives of Special Olympics Thailand. Firstly, as a registered National Sport Association recognized by the Thai government, we use the Unified Sports Program to increase public awareness on social inclusion. This is a Special Olympics sport program in which athletes with and without intellectual disabilities can play as a pair or compete in the same team. They share equal responsibility during the competition and work together seamlessly. In many instances, the skills of the Special Olympics athletes and the unified partners are so closely matched that the audience could not tell them apart. Unified sport competitions are really a small part of the process of inclusion. This is because to be able to work as a team during competition, players must practice together at least 8 to 12 weeks. Most of the unified partners themselves become advocates for social inclusion, with many of them saying that the Special Olympics athletes have taught them a lot about the spirit of humanity. Secondly, through our athlete leadership program, we provide opportunities for our athletes to be involved in many aspects of the movement. We have an athlete on our board. There is a National Athlete Leadership Input Council. Athlete leaders are encouraged to become volunteers during our activities and work alongside the non-disabled volunteers. Our athletes get the chance to speak to sponsors and participate in all our fundraising events. We are also reaching out to companies to give our athletes employment by engaging Special Olympics athletes in the Thailand movement at all levels. We are demonstrating the principles of social inclusion to the public, confirming that people of all abilities can exist in harmony together.
Thank you for all you do. We are living in a challenging time of social distancing. Dr. Naris, the work of Special Olympics Thailand gives opportunities to over 28,000 people. How do you work to support athletes during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Because people with intellectual disabilities are one of the high-risk groups in the COVID-19 outbreak, all our activities requiring physical engagement with our athletes had to be cancelled or postponed. In order to encourage our athletes to maintain their health and fitness, Special Olympics Thailand initiated a number of new programs to support our athletes. First and foremost, we create a national games in the virtual format, whereby athletes compete in individual skill events in certain sport disciplines between July and November. Their performance scores and video clips are then reviewed by teams of sport referees, and once the results are finalized, we will send medals to all athletes at their schools or centers, where they can be recognized among their peers. In addition to our own virtual games, we also provide opportunities for Thai Special Olympics athletes to compete in competitions hosted by other countries. The different challenges motivate the athletes to train harder. Beyond the sense of achievement gained by sport competitions, maintaining good health also helps with strong immunity to any illness. We translated and promote the Fit 5 exercises created by Special Olympics International and share them with all our stakeholders nationwide. We also produce our own health athletes video presented by our clinical directors and demonstrated by our athletes. These resources are made specifically for the needs of people with intellectual disabilities. Finally, I spent the lockdown writing a book titled Special Olympics Thailand, From Then to Now. It has 40 chapters and will be published in both English and Thai languages. Many people have helped me in producing this book. We will distribute it to schools, universities, and libraries nationwide to spread the story of Special Olympics. The book will also be part of a fundraising campaign that will support our program next year.
Really, it's amazing how the organization has adapted and found great ways to keep the athletes active. I think panels such as this one give us an international look and perspective on important topics, and give us inspiration towards decisions we personally make. To Mr. Parsons and our panel speakers, Ben, Cindy, Abhinav, Juan, and Dr. Naris, we thank you.